If there's anything the Smash Ultimate community can agree on with little to no debate, is the fact that Ganondorf is the worst character in the game. He has some great moves and he hits hard, but he's too slow. He has a miserable time getting out of juggles or making it back to the stage or doing anything except killing early if he manages to get an F smash in. And because Ultimate is a game that moves really quickly and that values mobility a lot, the fact that he's pretty easy to outspeed and overwhelm is really hard to ignore. But that doesn't stop people from doing amazing work with him and getting some good results in bracket. And as much as most of us probably enjoy playing as him in a more casual or friendly environment, I think it takes a lot of patience to take Ganondorf to a tournament. But it still happens, and they make him look like an art. No way! So something you'll experience once you start dedicating yourself to your main is you'll start to learn how well they do against other fighters. For example, Lucina doesn't like fighting against characters who can catch her jumps, Mario can struggle against swordies because he doesn't have the best range, and Ganondorf can struggle against his own mental state because he sucks. Alright, enough intro. I have 3 characters that I think lose to Ganondorf, and I feel like each one gets more and more surprising, but before we talk about them, first we need to look at why exactly Ganon is regarded as the worst character in the game. Because I guess saying he's slow is a good enough answer sometimes, but what exactly does slow mean in this game? Because Incineroar runs slower, and no one's ever called him the worst character in the game, and Snake isn't very fast either, but he's a top tier, so what's the difference between slow and Ganondorf slow? Well, the way I like to understand it is that maybe a better word to describe him is sluggish. Because in the neutral game, for example, when both players are looking for an opening, Incineroar is slow, but he has amazing frame data, and he has his down B to discourage camping, and he is greatly rewarded when he manages to get in. And Snake is the same way with grenades. He can have messy frame data sometimes, but with grenade he can just run around mashing the B button until you make a mistake, and that's when he gets in. Their movement speed itself may be slow, but they have straightforward, consistent ways that let them take their time a little more, and also punish reckless approaches hard, which is why for them, being slow isn't as much of a drawback. I mean, it is a drawback if you think about how Incineroar would probably be the best character in the game if he was fast, but in terms of balancing, I'm pretty sure we're all thankful that he isn't. Moving on though, we then have characters like Roy or Meta Knight that, like Ganon, also have to approach first if they want to win. But they also have the speed both in terms of frame data and movement to make their approach games more reliable. Ganondorf is stuck in the middle here. He has the worst of both worlds. He's a character that has to approach first, and he has some good moves, but they don't consistently make up for the lack of speed to make approaching feel very reliable, and he doesn't have anything in his kit that makes people feel obligated to approach. But don't get me wrong, he's not unplayable. Ultimate is a balanced-ish game. He does have an existent neutral game with Nair or dash attack, for example, and down tilt and down throw can make good combos, and when he gets in, his advantage state is really scary. He hits insanely hard. Like, he does have things going for him here. It's in these situations where he ends your stock at 40%, but the fact that he's so sluggish makes it real hard for him to get into that position to begin with and maintain it if you're fighting someone who is like equally as good as you. So if you have a serious Ganondorf and you want results with him, this means you have to be very patient. It means you can't get mad when you take a bunch of damage after losing most interactions, because that's what you sign up for when you pick Ganon. You have to pay a lot of attention to your opponent's habits if you want to make your wins in neutral to be worth the effort, and you have to be really careful not to overextend or make the wrong read and throw all that hard work away. He does have cheese, sure, but if you want to rely on yourself and your skill and not on silly business or people forgetting how big up smash is, Ganon players have to play smart. So that's the main reason Ganon isn't very good. There are a bunch of other weaknesses to look into, but you'll notice that they all tie back to him being sluggish. His mid out of shield game, the fact that anyone can give him a hard time off stage, he gets super juggled, and not all but some of your kill moves can be so laggy that one wrong move can give opponents a big enough opening to turn the game on you, making his advantage state a very high risk, high reward situation sometimes. The reward may be high, but he trades too much of his speed for strength. And like I said, this game moves far too quickly for that to be consistently reliable. He does have some quick moves that kill, like back air or nair or dash attack though, so that's cool. Those moves are really crazy, but it's not always enough when you have a million weaknesses, right? So hopefully this clears some stuff up. Again, Smash Ultimate is a balanced-ish game, which means that even Ganondorf has to have some characters that he does well against, right? So this should come as no surprise. Doc has some crazy cool combos and kill power once he gets in, and his frame data isn't bad, but his movement speed is really slow, and he has a bad range outside of Pill. And as much as I think he's a really fun character to play, he can have a hard time in a game where pretty much everyone can outspeed him. Something he has going for him is again his neutral B, the Pill, which is a great projectile that helps him up his combo game. It sets up for kills, it edge guards. It's a very good move and one that really brings Doc's kit together. But something silly Ganon can do here is that basically all of his moves beat out the Pill. And this doesn't make the move completely unreliable, but in neutral at least, you can basically just spam Nair and invalidate it. Nair is one of Ganon's fast moves. It's a really good move, and in this case you can stop Doc from trying to force you to approach. Also, in Ganondorf's advantage state, where his movement matters the least because your positioning lets you have to rely on it less, his edgeguarding is actually not bad, especially against Doc, who has one of the most linear and vulnerable recoveries in the game. So not only can you stop him from getting the most out of his best move, but once he's out of the stage, he is gonna be super open to being edgeguarded by an air or an up air, which sends at an insane angle. But he can still play the game here. I don't mean for this to sound like this is a super great matchup for the old man, but Dr. Mario does struggle against Ganon here more than Ganon does against him. By the way, I'm getting most of this info from Stu, who's a friend of mine. He's a top 100 Ganon in the world. I have one friendly win against him because I think he killed himself trying to get me with side B off stage or something. That's the biggest flex of my career. So if you want to disagree with any of the stuff in this video, that's fine. Because matchups and matchup charts always have a lot of personal experience sprinkled into them. So opinions can always vary, but you know, I trust him, man. I trust him. I think he's cool. So this one's interesting. Ganondorf usually loses against projectile zoners, but K. Rool is weird because like Dr. Mario, he's not someone that greatly outspeeds him, and not being able to run circles around Ganon is always something he'll welcome, so big thing here. And this also means K. Rool can't mash in neutral here. He doesn't have the frame data to wall us out at close range. At the same time, he does have projectiles, which I'll get into in a bit. But before that, there's also the fact that K. Rools love to edgeguard with Nair, because it has belly armor and it lasts forever, and his recovery goes super far, but Ganon's up B is a command grab, which means it beats armor as long as you don't use it too late. And also, since K. Rool's recovery is kind of linear and only has one hitbox above him, it's actually Ganon who has a better time edgeguarding, because he can just go low and up B him, which means Ganon beats K. Rool off stage. I think the main thing that makes Ganon win this matchup is how good he is at threatening armor. It only takes a couple moves to break his belly armor with any of his aerials except Nair, so K. Rool can't abuse belly armor in this matchup, which is huge. Now, projectiles are a thing, and Ganon always struggles against being zoned out like this, so of course he can still camp you out. But he really doesn't have the speed to just play like this forever. And my favorite thing about this matchup is, you know how side B always causes a tech situation? Well, aerial side B is the same, but you can't tech it. So if K. Rool throws his side B at you, you can just shield the crown on its way out and use aerial side B. And a lot of the time, this means the crown won't hit you on its way back. It'll just go back to K. Rool. The crown is usually a really good space check because it's out for a while and it comes back, so you have to focus on its returning hitbox too, but using this trick makes it so that you can actually just forget about the crown, which is one of K. Rool's best moves after blocking it if he's in range. So that's cool, just don't go Ganon against any other projectile zoners though. Lucario is a weird one because he's pretty good, and outside of his aura mechanic, he's kind of a generalist. Like, his moves are quick, he has a projectile, good edge guarding, all of which are properties that a lot of characters have. But basically, the simplest way I can explain this is that it's not that Ganon beats Lucario, it's that Ganon beats Aura, and Lucario by extension. So as a slow super heavyweight, I've made it clear that Ganon might hit super hard, but he sacrificed a little too much of his other stats in order to be that strong, which means he's too sluggish to consistently make use of his strength 100% of the time. And while that combination of attributes usually correlates to a character people will consider a low tier, it does mean that these guys will usually kill the earliest. And I mean earliest not in terms of how much time has passed, but percentage wise. Their kill moves just kill at earlier percents. It's how they work. It may take 20 years for Ganon to finally get the upper hand on you, but once he does, you die at a lower percent. He sucks, but it's how he was designed. And for Lucario, this design is super bad for him because Aura just goes out the window. It's still there. I don't mean to say that Aura becomes completely obsolete, but its presence is far less scary and becomes way less relevant when fighting heavies. Because if Aura is designed to come in at later percents and Ganon is designed to take stocks before that happens, then that's really bad for Lucario. He can still play the game, sure, but Lucario is a character that was designed to work alongside Aura. It's his thing. And in this matchup he has to rely on it less. And without aura or with low aura, Lucario's neutral B doesn't give out enough pressure for Ganon to struggle that much when approaching, and Lucario isn't necessarily the best at approaching himself. I don't mean to say he's better at approaching because he's not. He has good frame data and he's kind of fast, but he's also floaty and he doesn't have the best range. So he is better at approaching than Ganon, of course, but as the worst character in the game, you have to take what you can get. In the mind of a Ganondorf player, not that bad and good basically mean the same thing. Lucario's recovery can be exploited too with good timing, especially without high aura. It has little protection and he can only mix up his options in stages with walls or by skipping ledge, which is not something you want Ganon to call you out on. Again, Ganon is still the worst character in the game. I won't act like he destroys Lucario because the furry can still edgeguard him and run circles around him with his speed, but the main thing is that he does force him to rely less on aura, and that's not something Lucario can just ignore, and I think it's big enough of a drawback for Lucario to lose this matchup, especially because Ganon is really heavy and Lucario's skill power without aura is really weak. So Ganon is going to be living forever and Lucario is probably going to have to rely more on edge guards and other ways to get early kills without aura. So those are 3 matchups that I believe the old man wins. There may be more, because Stu did tell me that there are characters you could argue struggle slightly against Ganondorf, like Fox or Martha Lucina or Cloud, which I think are some questionable takes. And also saying he wins 3 matchups might be too optimistic for some people, because I've been lurking in the Ganondorf Discord for a while and some people over there are fairly comfortable saying that he doesn't win against anyone and that the best he has are even matchups, which is a completely cool opinion to have. You don't have to agree with this list. Like I said at the start of the video, opinions regarding a certain character's matchups always have some sort of personal bias to them. So I'm fully expecting some sort of discourse in the comments. Just, you know, I don't know, keep it civil, right? You know, be nice. Or don't. I'm not your mom, not yet, at least.